There's a reoccurring dream I've had 4 times now. It always starts the exact same, but ends differently. The main part of the dream goes as follows. I'm walking along a sidewalk by a speedway near my old neighborhood with homes on the left-hand side and businesses on the right. It's pitch black, and not a single car passes by. Where I'm walking to is unclear. On the opposite side of the speedway walks a skinny man, dressed completely in black with a hoodie. He turns his head at me while still walking, and it's clear that he's wearing a white latex mask. I suddenly become uneasy because he doesn't look like someone I'd want to meet, especially at night, and he's aware of my presence. At this point, I decide it's best that I turn around and go back to my old house. I stop walking, and the strange man turns away and continues moving forward to my relief. I stand there for a few seconds until the man is far off in the distance. Then I turn around and walk back to my home. Suddenly, I hear footsteps behind me. I look out the corner of my eye and see that the man is following me and getting very close. My heart begins to pound, and I quicken my pace, wondering how he got behind me so fast when he was so far away from me on the other side of the street just a second ago. After a few moments of panic, I decide it's time to face this person and see how much danger I'm really in. I turn around to find a young boy, probably middle school age, wearing a backpack. Surprised, I say hi to the boy, which he says in return, then walks ahead of me towards a small house with its door open. An eerie blue light shimmers from the opening. Before going inside, the boy looks back at me and invites me in. I politely refuse, then continue on my way through the darkness. As I get further away from the boy's house, it quickly becomes apparent the blue light is the only light source that can be seen. But I trudge onward. My destination is the house that I'd grown up in, so finding my way there through the dark shouldn't be a problem. I take the left up a short hill, then a right across the street, knowing my house is just around the corner. After another hill, I'm sure I found my home, but I soon realize that I'm wrong. I don't see my house anywhere, and there are no lights on in the entire neighborhood. Unsure of what to do and getting freaked out, I start running, going as fast as I can, and I'd never stop till I found my house in the dark maze that I was in. That's where the first dream in this series ends. The second dream goes the same way right up until the part where the boy invites me into his house. This time I agree to go inside and get to know him. When I enter the house, I find the blue light has been coming from a TV screen the whole time, with a Sonic the Hedgehog game being played by his younger brother. I'm instantly greeted by his mother, and his father is in the kitchen making popcorn. While the inside of the house isn't very spacious, it still looks cozy with a long, comfortable couch and a recliner in the living room. Without really talking much to the family, I sit down to play my favorite game from back in the day. I play against my new friend, and then with his brother. After a while, the family starts to seem a little too friendly, and an uneasy feeling creeps over me. Things get even more uneasy when the loving mother of the family brings out a plate with cigarettes piled on top, passes them around to her kids. The kids are way below the legal smoking age, but the mother lights up their cigarettes for them anyway, and they begin smoking with delight. Even as an adult, smoking is something I've never been too fond of, but I take a cigarette anyway, as to not be rude. Once finished, I thank the family for their generosity and get up to leave. The last thing I remember is the mother arranging candles on a table and lighting them. In the third dream, I enter the house and I play Sonic the Hedgehog just like before, but the part with the cigarettes doesn't happen. However, the scene with the candles does, and the father stands in front of the TV, holding a book with an upside-down cross on the cover. He opens the book and begins reading passages in a very dark tone. The next thing I know, the 4 family members start hovering a couple inches off the ground. They float around the entire house, and the younger brother floats up a short flight of stairs to his bedroom, laughing as he does so. Meanwhile, I'm still sitting on the couch, watching all of this, and I'm paralyzed with fear, even though they were all smiling and having fun with their powers. I was too afraid to move. My fear of what they might do to me kept me from trying to escape, and I awoke from that dream screaming. The fourth and final dream so far. The family didn't smoke cigarettes or hover in the air like before. Instead, they all sat together on their couch, staring at a blank screen and not speaking or even moving. I was standing up looking in horror at the man in the latex mask, sitting inside the cozy house on the recliner, holding a shiny combat knife. Before I woke up, all I saw after that was darkness, followed by the family members screaming as they were being stabbed repeatedly by the man I had encountered in dream number 1. Now, for the dream analysis. A doctor whose name I can't reveal at this time was able to make me realize that the man in the latex mask is me. The boy I meet on the sidewalk is Stephen Chaney, my old friend. His mother is Megan, father Lewis, brother Morgan. In all 4 dreams, I take on the role of my younger self, and the killer is the person I would later become. On August 13th, 1996, I killed the Chaney family. I've been in prison for a long time, and after 10 years, I developed amnesia and simply forgot about that incident. It wasn't until I started having these dreams that everyone came back to me. It wasn't until I started having these dreams that everything came back to me. And before you decide that you hate me, hear me out first, okay? The ability to float in the air was just one of the many things the Chaney family were capable of. They weren't possessed by spirits. They were just evil. Evil incarnate. They could move objects and operate electronics with their minds, hold flames without getting burnt. They practiced sacrifice and got away with it. I remember hanging out with Steven all through middle school and most of high school, always at his house. His family seemed so nice, but through all those years, he had been giving me little hints that they were gifted. It was on the last day that we hung out that they revealed their flying powers, and I never spoke to him again after that night. Although too afraid to ever go back, I would go out at night on missions to spy on them. It was on these missions that I witnessed the horrible things I mentioned earlier. A couple years went by with me doing nothing about this evil presence that lived so close to my house with my loving parents. I tried to put it out of my mind. I went forward with my plan of going to college, living in a dorm room, while in college I spent a lot of time in the library reading about the occult. What I read confirmed what I saw on my spying missions. And action had to be taken. I couldn't go to the police. I knew I had to go it alone. On August 13th, I drove my fairly new car back to my old neighborhood to stay the night at my parents' house. When they had fallen asleep that night, I snuck out wearing a hoodie and latex mask, and I made my way towards the Chaney house. I cut their power. Then I crept in through their unlocked back door to find them standing in their living room in confusion. I rushed at them with my knife my dad had kept from his days in the military, and I was able to kill them all, starting with the father and ending with my old friend Stephen. I savored their death screams. And when it was over, and I was walking back home, that's when the cops came. The screaming of those demonic bastards had been loud enough for the police to show up, and 2 of them tackled me to the ground and threw me in their squad car before I could run home. My crime was all over the news the next day. People called me disturbed and maniacal and crazy. No one would believe that I had saved an entire neighborhood from evil forces. Instead of a simple thank you, I got life in prison. Well, since it's almost time for my medication, I'll end with a word of caution. Only trust those closest to you. Don't just assume that most people are normal and good-natured. There are beings living among us that take on the forms of average-looking, friendly people, and should they choose, they'll harm you. If you suspect that there's something off about seemingly normal people, remember my story.
Hey there, kids, and happy Halloween. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's episode, this Oktoberfest, on the podcast. If you're not listening on the podcast, then you always can listen on the podcast at Spotify, or just about anywhere you find a podcast. And if you're not listening on YouTube, then you can find it on YouTube, or just about anywhere you find a YouTube. I just want to remind all of you that if you're on a cold autumn night and you need a warm drink, then my wife sells tea. There's tea available at etsy.com/shop/ivory-monocle-tea. All different kinds, including those themed off of creepypastas, horror icons, horror monsters, and Dungeons & Dragons. And if you order that creepypasta set with the Mr. Creepypasta's Dark and Stormy Night, the actual tea that I drink while recording these stories, probably about 60% of the time, then you can always ask for that MCP dabbing sticker instead of the classic channel icon sticker. And I get a kick out of it every time someone asks her to do that. Also, I wanted to say thank you, all of you who are supporting me on Patreon. It's patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. If you ever want to help support the show, keep the lights on, feed my cats, and the like, you can always head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, and you can support the show there. Even $1 is greatly appreciated. And I have a very special thank you to these guys, such as Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Mr. Thud, Ken Lando Higuchi, Chompski, Nico, kaeo, Tristain, Pelton, Stephen VanHuss, Chance Burnett, Deanna Kraus, G. Weevil 3, TheRedOakShieldVirus, CoryxKenshin, Pothead Holmes, Rival 1, JimboTheHutt, Caspian, Jordan Nells, The Village Witch, Hades' Nephew, Jordan Wayne Deckard, Bradley Leipe, and Charron, AcidSystem, Mike Bullock, Fooly Cooly Dude, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation, Brian Arse, Cryptic Nightmares, Shadow Morningstar, Brianna Wright, Someone You Love, Said the King 56, Bad Honey, S-Man, Kiri the Sloth, Thomas Burgett, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Last Blade Song, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, and Aaron Stormcrow. And another thank you to all you guys who are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for listening. And I hope you all have a wonderfully happy Halloween. Sweet dreams.